Welcome to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production. Hi, I'm Carol Bissett, a crime writer, and I invite you with my co-presenters, Liz Hedgecock and Mike Jackson, each week to our conversations on all things murderous.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Only Murders in My Mind. You may be wondering why it's me that's introducing today's episode and not Carol. Well, Carol unfortunately is still not 100%, so won't be joining us today. So you've got me, Mike Jackson, and my very good friend Liz. How are you, Liz?
I'm all right, thank you. Yes.
Great. Now, today we're broadcasting our Christmas episode. It'll be coming out to you on Boxing Day. And we are into December, but we thought we'd get this one out of the way early on. And today is all about Christmas, crime, murder, and mystery. So, Liz, how's Christmas going in your house? Or is it too early yet?
It's a bit early to say. We've ordered the turkey and we have a tree. However, I am well behind with the presents. Yeah, so pretty much business as usual. Right. And also I am rushing to get things done for Christmas.
That's the problem with this time of the year. It just catches up on it, doesn't it?
Oh,
very,
absolutely.
Very quickly.
And every year I think, right, I'm going to draw a line in the sand. I'm going to stop doing stuff so that I have plenty of time to prepare for Christmas. And as always, I am scrambling. Yeah. So I am proofing book 3 of Mrs. Hudson and Sherlock Holmes series at the moment. And hopefully by the time you listen to this, it will be well out. So...
Yes, by the time you listen to this, you'll have got Christmas out of the way.
You'll be full of turkey.
You'll be full of turkey and lots of good cheer.
Yes, and wondering what's on the TV.
That's right. But before you watch the TV, you're going to listen to an episode of Only Murders in My Mind.
That's vaguely threatening, Mike. You will listen.
well, yeah, of course, yeah.
Well, they're probably too full of turkey to move, so we're probably quite safe.
Yes. Yeah. So, Christmas murders, it seems a contradiction, that, doesn't it? You know, Christmas, that sort of time of joy, and yet we're going to be talking about the dark undertones of Christmas and
but
mystery.
Also, I mean, Christmas is a dead interesting time.
It
and
is,
in some ways ripe for things to happen, because in a lot of households you'll have a lot of people gathered together who have to be there for whatever reason, but maybe don't get on that well, you know, that disagreeable relative. It's the same sort of thing. It lends itself to like the country house murder as well, because you have a gathering of disparate people all coming together in a space, and that kind of potentially claustrophobic atmosphere.
That's right. It's the only time you see Auntie Mabel or Uncle Joe, you know, who you don't get on with, and they're all together in the same house.
Yes, and they've got your socks again.
Yes, yeah. And after 2 or 3 days of all these relatives visiting, you probably do feel like murdering one
and
or two
several
of them.
large sherries as well.
And several large sherries helps. Yeah, it made me think of something like Home Alone.
Oh yeah, go on.
I've
never seen Home Alone. I know.
Oh,
it's a matter of legend in our house. The number of films I have not seen.
Well, Home Alone is one you should watch. But again, it's a sort of story that you wonder, if it wasn't set at Christmas, would it have worked? You know, it's very slapstick and all sorts of this young lad finding all sorts of ways to foil these robbers. But the whole thing being set at Christmas almost sets the scene of him not being there, the fact that he is home alone.
Although you do have to wonder about what family would leave their kid alone at Christmas.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it does happen.
A bit careless, but...
Yeah. I remember, sorry, going off on a slight tangent. I remember
That's unlike you, Mike.
Yeah, many years ago when my children are both grown up now, but when they were very, very little, we had some friends. We had 2 children, they had 4. Oof. And we were all going off in their big car to somewhere, a local park. And we all got into the car, and you know it's like with young children, you've got bags and bottles and all sorts. So there we are. We all piled into this car. We'd got 100 yards down the road, and Kath said, "Stop!" So her husband put the anchors on, and the car screeched to a halt, and we all said, "What's the matter?" "I've just had a count up. We're missing one." And she'd left the youngest one, the baby, in a carry cot in the front room.
Oops.
So, Home Alone is not impossible.
I heard a similar one, but it involved the ferry to Ireland, which is a bit more permanent, really. I think they put the kid concerned on the next one, but I
Yes.
think there may have been some red faces.
So, classic Christmas crime stories.
Mm.
Any that come to mind, Liz?
Well, I mean, I suppose I've been thinking about the sort of the general atmosphere rather than specific tales. But yes, I know there's one out, I think it's fairly recent, called The Killer's Christmas List,
Oh, right.
which sounds a bit worrying.
It does indeed, yeah.
Yeah, I think part of it is I'm not that bothered about a book being set at Christmas, which is really hypocritical of me because I've set various like stories at Christmas. But yeah, it's not a I don't know. I mean, the ones that I think about, I suppose, there's Hercule Poirot's Christmas, and there's also, I think it's The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding.
Yes, yeah.
So nicely festive. I think possibly also for me, it feels a bit, when you're saying about if Home Alone wasn't set at Christmas, would it work?
Yes.
I suppose I worry a bit about, reading something quite dark set at Christmas because I think, would that influence Christmas for me?
Yeah.
So
I think the other thing I find strange too, I mean, I'm just looking at my list here of some of the crime stories I've written down.
Yes, Mike does have a list. We're okay.
I noticed I got down here a Father Brown story.
Oh, yeah.
Which features a jewel theft at Christmas.
Mm.
And when I watch something, I watch the Father Browns, I quite enjoy them. But when you watch something that's set at Christmas, 9 times out of 10, it's been filmed in the middle of July or something. And you've got all this fake snow and somebody's put these holly wreaths up and it's all just out of character.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem real.
It's like when they do the Bake Off Christmas specials and darn well it's fake snow and they've got some poor carol singers and they're like muffled up in scarves and hats and probably absolutely sweltering.
Yeah. And I think it's something like that Father Brown one. It's probably the producers are thinking, this one's going out about Christmas. Have we got a Christmas story we can throw in with our Father Brown series? I think they quite often do that, don't they?
Well, I suppose that's the thing. It's a tradition, isn't it, in TV that you will have a Christmas special of, popular series. So like the Ghost Christmas special, for example.
When I think of some of the modern Christmas stories, the one that appeals to me most is a much older story, and it's called Dickens. Scrooge, Christmas Carol.
Indeed.
That somehow seems to be a really appropriate Christmas story. It's not been a story that's been plonked into Christmas, but it's a story that's very much revolved around Christmas at that time.
Yes, and it absolutely has to be at Christmas.
It has to
be
at
Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Yes.
I mean, I hope we're not giving any spoilers here, but if you don't know the story of Christmas Carol, then have you been under a rock? I actually saw Muppet Christmas Carol for the first time last year.
Oh, right.
Oh, I loved it.
Was it good?
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
I remember reading something about, they said to Michael Caine, you can have some fun with this. And he said, no, I'm going to play this as straight as if I was in the Royal Shakespeare Company. As far as I'm concerned, these are real actors that I'm working. I just thought that was so good.
and yet, Christmas Carol as a story is very, very dark.
Oh, yes.
It's a real ghost story.
And I mean, ghost stories and Christmas go together. I mean, yes, Halloween for ghosts, but also Christmas and ghosts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, not that I've been at all cynical in releasing a ghost story omnibus.
No, of course not.
Fairly soon before Christmas. I mean, and that's the other thing, I suppose, like the economic angle of doing something Christmas related.
That's right. Because when you think, that Christmas is the time when lots of people decide that they will buy a book for somebody or another as a Christmas present. And it, as a writer, it would be daft to miss that opportunity, wouldn't it? Either to have a series or a book coming out ready for Christmas, or to actually specifically go for a Christmas-themed story.
Yes, indeed. But I mean, if you think of all that, isn't it? It's September to December, isn't it? That's when traditional publishers are really ramping up their advertising. And I think it's Super Thursday in September.
Right.
And that's when they release what they think are going to be the big Christmas books.
Yeah.
To give them, plenty of time for the hype to build so that, Auntie Lou or whoever, you're thinking of what to get them and what's easy to wrap. And
that's right, because I think if you are thinking of writing a book, publishing a book for Christmas, then you really need to be thinking about getting it into the bookshops or onto Amazon end of August, beginning of September. It needs to be early on. If
I
you're
think my record is the 23rd of December for a
right.
book I wanted out before Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
not always...
a bestseller, I hear.
You know what I said about scrambling? No,
Yeah.
it did pretty well, actually. So that was All at Sea, Maisie. And I know that's not a Christmas book, but because it was the first in a new series, I thought, right, I want that out for Christmas.
I wonder if people read Christmassy stories at other times rather than Christmas.
I had a look on my sales figures.
Oh, right.
Yes. I can confirm that, as you would expect, the sales figures for Christmassy books are biggest in November and December.
Yeah.
But also a surprising number of people buy them in January.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You know why, don't you? That's when they've all got their book vouchers for Christmas.
Yeah, but you would think they'd be sick of Christmas by then,
right,
but apparently not. But no, there's a fairly steady low-level trickle throughout the year with a bump in July.
Oh, right.
Because Christmas in July is a thing. But yeah, I mean, I find this as well. I've got a few Halloween-themed books, and they get bought just whenever.
I think the other thing too is some people have stories which, while they may not necessarily be Christmas stories as such, they sort of come under that umbrella because they're set in what we always like to think is a Christmas scene. You know, the snowy scene. You know, I can think of some books that fit into that.
Yeah,
but
I suppose that kind of, you know, I was saying earlier about it lends itself to a country house sort of thing going on. And again, you know, you can imagine, you know, an Agatha Christie adaptation at Christmas and everyone gathering in the house and then dun dun dun.
Yeah. An ideal time, isn't it? Because it's going to be the Christmas as we said right at the beginning, it's the Christmas get together, the family or the Christmas party. And once you gather those people together, as Agatha Christie was very good at doing, then you're just setting the scene for a nice juicy murder or
Absolutely.
two. Yeah.
And I suppose also there's the kind of the psychological thing going on where you may have, you know, siblings who don't get on, parents and children kind of, you know, you would think that they wouldn't kind of relapse into nagging and whining and all of that stuff, but maybe they do. So all those grudges coming to the surface and the past kind of in front of them. So you're making me want to write a Christmas murder book
I'm
now.
just thinking the same thing. I think as the family gather together this Christmas, I think I'll be looking at them thinking, oh, now, is there one of you that I could murder in the story? I'd probably end up making a list and see who comes top.
So I can imagine you writing a story about this.
It does strike me as something that is more than feasible.
Yes. So have you written a Christmas story before?
Well, I'm
Mike?
just going to see if I can find one. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to ask you because I know you have written some Christmas-specific stories.
I have. It's a bit shameless of me, isn't it? So yeah, I've done a couple of. One of them is The Case of the Peculiar Pantomime, which is a
I love the title,
novelette-sized story, which I co-wrote with Paula Harmon, friend of the show.
Remind people, Liz, a novelette.
Novelette. Okay, so smaller than a novella and longer than your general short story. So I think this is about 12 to 15,000 words. So it's a nice length for something you can kind of a light read when you're digesting your turkey. So this is the theory. So there's that. And I also did a little collection of 4 stories, which are all Christmas themed, and it's called Christmas Presents, Presence. And that's something where each of the stories features characters from a different series. And I use it partly as a kind of a Christmas thing, but also as a reader magnet. So trying to
and if anybody
find new
wanted
readers.
to purchase these books, Liz, they would be able to, wouldn't they?
Of course they would be able to. You could look on Amazon. But also I tend to do over Christmas a Kindlemas sort of promotion for some of my ebooks. So normally I will have some that are on discount, and I will normally have at least one that is free. So if you go on Amazon and have a look, or if you subscribe to my newsletter, then I will tell you all about my Kindlemas giveaways.
Yeah. So there you are, listening to this episode on Boxing Day. You've got all those Amazon vouchers that you've been given for Christmas, wondering what to do with
No
them.
pressure.
There's a suggestion. I'm going to have a look at Lizzie's books.
Okay. Do you want me to read a bit of one?
Okay, please.
Okay. So I actually wrote this story, which is called The Case of the Christmas Pudding. I wanted to call it The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding, but Agatha got there first.
She does have a habit of doing that, doesn't she?
She seems to,
Picking all the best titles.
Shocking. So this is a story, and it starts off fairly normally. There's a client calls on Holmes unexpectedly, and this is how it all begins. So we have a nice woman who has come to them in great distress, and she is now relating the story. My name is Dora North, and I live with my husband in Pasden, a village in Hertfordshire. We've been married for 6 months, and such a thing as this has never happened before. At first I thought nothing of it, but in the days since I have grown more and more worried about him. He has become withdrawn and cold towards me, and I have done nothing to deserve it. Perhaps if you start from the beginning, Mrs. North, that will help us to puzzle this out, remarked Holmes. To a casual observer he would have appeared calm, but I noted the continual jiggle of his left foot. It began on Christmas Day, said Mrs. North. We had arranged that my parents, who live nearby, would come to us on Christmas morning. We opened our presents together then, instead of on Christmas Eve, and ate our Christmas dinner. Everything was wonderful, and my husband John was in unusually good spirits. He can be rather quiet sometimes. She paused and gazed at Holmes with those wide blue eyes. And then cook brought in the pudding. Holmes leaned forward. Go on. Once the flames were extinguished, John undertook to serve the pudding. We each had a large helping, as cook's puddings are uncommonly good. Mamma got the silver wishbone, Papa a silver sixpence, and John got the anchor. But when I cut my piece, I found a charm in the shape of a D. She reached into her bag, brought out a folded handkerchief, and unwrapped it to show a letter D, quite plain and made of silver, with a little loop at the top for a link. Holmes took it, produced a pocket magnifying glass, peered at it for a few seconds, and then handed it back. I exclaimed in delight and turned to thank John, for I assumed it was a surprise for me, but his face was as white as a sheet, and he stared at my little charm as if it were a poisonous snake. "Isn't this not from you, dear?" I asked, and with that same strange look he said that it was not. My parents both examined the charm, as surprised as any of us, and said they knew nothing of it. Mamma tried to make the best of it by laughing and saying that it was a little mystery, but John threw down his napkin and got up. When I asked where he was going, he said, "To the kitchen. This must have come from somewhere." "But what about your pudding?" I asked. He looked at me with a mixture of anger and despair such as I have never seen on his face. "I have lost my appetite," he said, and left the room. He did not return, and later a maid brought a message to say that he had gone to bed with a headache. Ever since then he has been very quiet, and I am at a loss to fathom why. "I see," said Holmes. "That is not the end of it," she replied, with an expression of mild reproach. Yesterday evening, when we were alone, I asked him what he was thinking, as he had not spoken for a whole hour. "I am planning to start a business on the continent," he said. "You may accompany me or not, as you wish." Her face twisted in anguish. "I cannot live abroad. How could I be apart from my parents? And what else can I do? Perhaps he thinks I have done something improper, and a man has put the charm in the pudding to woo me, and I don't know what to do." She burst into noisy tears and buried her face in her hands. "Please don't worry, Mrs. North," said Holmes, when she had calmed herself a little. "We shall come back with you on the next train and see if we can get to the bottom of this matter."
Very good.
So,
Very good.
I like puddings.
Yes.
Useful for putting things into.
I've got a Santa monologue.
Oh, have you now?
Not very, let's say Santa's a bit disgruntled.
I think I would be.
You think you know me, don't you? Jolly old Saint Nick, fat, red-suited fool with a hearty ho-ho-ho and a sack of toys. That's the image, isn't it? But let me tell you something. It's a lie. A glossy, sugar-coated lie to keep you warm while I freeze my baubles off at the North Pole. I've had enough. Centuries of this. Centuries of giving, of smiles plastered on my face, while you lot, take and take and take. You don't leave out mince pies anymore, do you? No sherry, no little thank you notes scribbled in crayon. No, these days it's all Amazon wish lists and demands. I want this, I want that. Not a hint of gratitude, Just greed wrapped up in tinsel. And the kids? Don't get me started on the kids. They're not like they used to be. Gone are the days of wooden trains and rag dolls. Now they want the latest iPhone, gaming consoles, drones. As if my elves are tech support for Silicon Valley. Cheek of it. Those little so-and-sos don't even believe in me anymore. Oh, they'll sit on my lap in the shopping centre, but you can see it in their eyes. Suspicion, doubt. They know I'm not real, but they still want the loot. Parasites. The elves, useless, overworked and underqualified. Half of them can't tell a jack-in-the-box from a Rubik's Cube. And don't get me started on their union. Better working conditions, Santa. More breaks, Santa. I tell you, it's like herding drunken reindeer. And as for the reindeer, Rudolph and his blasted nose, you think I want a red light in my face for the entire night? It's migraine-inducing. And the others, Comet, Blitzen, Prancer, they're all prima donnas, constantly whining about the cold or the altitude. Dasher's got a drinking problem. Cupid, well, let's just say you don't want to know what Cupid gets up to during his downtime. And Mrs. Claus? She's no help. She spends all her time knitting pointless scarves and nagging me about the cholesterol. Lay off the mince pies, dear, she says, while she stuffs her face with gingerbread. Hypocrite. Do you know what it's like squeezing down chimneys for people who've forgotten you? For people who wouldn't even notice you if you dropped dead in the snow? It's humiliating, degrading, and every year it gets worse. This Christmas Eve I sat on my sleigh, sack of toys at my feet, and I thought, why bother? Why reward a world that's forgotten kindness? They're too busy staring at screens to look up and see the stars. Maybe I'll skip a house or a street, maybe a whole town. Maybe I'll let the shadows creep in this year, let the cold wind bite a little harder, let them know what it feels like to be ignored. After all, even Santa has his limits, and mine's about to snap.
Ooh.
A nice little cheery Christmas story.
Absolutely. Oh, any personal bar humbugness in that one?
Well, funny thing is, when I was at school, as a head teacher in a primary school, many of the teachers used to love Christmas. I mean, I had some staff who would start decorating their classroom at the beginning of November if I let them. Oh. And I used to ban anything Christmas. Was not allowed to happen before December the 1st. And even then, I wasn't over keen. So I used to have the words humbug written across my office door, just to remind people. Right, another very quick one. This is a 100-word story, this one. Just 100 words, called Christmas Dinner. The kitchen was a hive of frantic activity. The freshly dug potatoes shivered as the cold water poured over their skins, and a harsh brush scrubbed away their protective coats of mud. The Brussels sprouts in a bowl in the corner watched on helplessly. They'd been here a while now and knew what was about to happen. They would have cried out a warning, but it had been to no avail. They averted their eyes as the young chef started to skin the potatoes alive, their screams quickly disappearing as they were dropped into a pan of boiling water.
I don't even want to think about sentient veg. That's really worrying.
So there's my there's my contribution for a cheerful Christmas.
Yeah, don't have nightmares, people. Good grief. Although I don't really mind what happens to the Brussels sprouts. Can't stand them.
Oh, I love Brussels sprouts.
Oh, no, you can have mine. They're the real horror story of Christmas, they are. And on that note, I think we're getting close to
a finish.
Yes. So,
sorry, go on, Liz.
Hope you've had a wonderful Christmas.
Yes, I know you've not drunk too much. No, actually, I hope you have drunk too much. And I hope you've had a really good time. And I hope our episode here without Liz has just helped to.
Hang on, I'm definitely here.
Our episode without Carol.
That's the one. He's looking at me as he says it.
I know. You see, we miss Carol. She sort of anchors together. Usually we just sit in the corner and throw in all sorts of silly arguments, but when we're actually left in charge,
I know, it's frightening, isn't it?
We don't really know what we're doing, do we?
No. I think they know that already. But yes, hope you've had lots of great books in your stocking as well, and that you get to sit down and watch a Christmas criminal caper of some sort or other.
And if you get a chance, go and have a look on the Only Murders in My Mind blog. We've just started something new on there. We've started putting some shorts up, YouTube shorts, all about Sherlock Holmes. So if you get a chance, go and have a look at those. And until next time, it's goodbye from Mike and
goodbye from me.
You have been listening to Only Murders in My Mind, a Random Thought production, produced by John Bissett. The music in Peril was composed and recorded by OM Studio Strings.